Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
How you doing? Good evening, everyone. It is 8:01 p.m. and I am calling to order this meeting of the Winchester School Committee. My name is Timothy Matthews.
Recording in progress.
I serve as chair of the committee. I'm joined with our other committee members, Stephanie Menardi, Karen Marioma Bolognese, Tom Hopcroft, and John Belair, as well as our superintendent and wonderful district staff. We will, for tonight, table our consent agenda and move directly into item 3 on the agenda currently shown on screen, which is further review and discussion of our FY27 budget. So with that, I would hand it over to Dr. Hackett, Mr. Marin, and anyone else from district administration who might be presenting tonight. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and look forward to our dialogue during the public forum.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. And I'm making some assumptions that many of you who are on this call have seen much of this information before. It's always a bit of a challenge to kind of know where to start, but we do want to get to the public forum, and we know, we had to wait for FinCom actually to finish up their meeting, so we had to start a little bit late. So I'm going to kind of start with the assumption that people are familiar with what we've been doing. And then we can also give you a little bit of an update, which the only update we have is on, we now have essentially identified all the reductions. Everyone has been notified for the most part, well, really within like a couple. So, and we've not called those out specifically yet. So the budget that we're talking about is the 5%, which the school committee charged and committed to as our starting point several meetings ago, quite some time ago now, it seems like forever. And so we've been continuing to work off the 5%, understanding that, we've continued to call this a draft budget. We know that town meeting started last night, unbelievably, and that our budget will be taken up more than likely on Monday at town meeting. So there's a lot going on. There's a tri-board meeting tomorrow night that is the school committee, select board, as well as FinCom. And so we're kind of still under development. But I think, and Dr. Matthews can speak to it as well. Our commitment now is to not make any additional budget-related FTE reductions. So wherever we land, and that's our commitment as administration. I believe school committee would be committed to that as well. I don't want to speak for them, but that could be part of the discussion tonight. Any reductions that we would be making, if we have to make reductions, would not be to staff. So budget-related reductions. We still have things that are happening as part of the normal course of business, and so if now things can change, right? We all know that the town meeting is the final decider on the bottom line budget number, and if town meeting goes in a different direction and we're significantly in a much different place, then the school committee would have to meet again immediately after town meeting and have that discussion as to how to manage any kind of reductions that might result from that. So again, we're at a 5% year over year. Operating budget to operating budget. That's where we are. We have the timeline that we have shown. This has been quite a process, and maybe I don't know whether Dr. Matthews or Ms. Menardi want to speak to that, because it involved the state of the town. If you want to maybe take that and just kind of
I'm happy to do that. So
perfect.
I will start just by, so I presented this at town meeting for those who were there last night or happened to be viewing that last night. But the thing that is important to note with this is that we have been developing essentially the building blocks of the budget that we have in front of everybody tonight over the past year and a half. So starting between October 2024 and February 2025, the committee engaged in a multi-pronged stakeholder engagement process around our budget priorities and the needs for our schools. That engaged primarily through an online platform, nearly 1,000 families, as well as educators, staff members, and community stakeholders across Winchester. We also did public forums and had some individual meetings with town meeting members back then. And the goal of all of that was to cast as wide a net as possible in terms of understanding what the community needs were, to make sure that, to the extent that things filter up to us, that we were in a place where in every case, we had captured as much information as possible from our families and students, obviously, but also from our educators and staff and from community stakeholders across Winchester. And so that process goes back a year and a half. That actually fed into what we had been calling our WPS 2030 plan. And so this past summer, we started what essentially ended up being a 9-month process of work through what was known as State of the Town. And so the State of the Town process was community stakeholders from our key townwide elected boards, our appointed boards like FinCom as well, and also community members, many of whom happened to be, I think all of whom actually happened to be town meeting members as well. But it was a fairly large and ideologically diverse group from different age groups and from different corners of our town. And that work continued for essentially 9 months until finally the State of the Town Committee produced a report. That report was then used by the Select Board to make its 5-0 determination that they wanted to place an operating override of $11.5 million on the ballot. Obviously, everybody, I believe, on this call probably knows that that operating override failed by 280 votes roughly at town meeting. At the annual town election, which is what you see sort of on the right-hand side of the slide. And I just want to note that during the State of the Town process, the school committee's budget subcommittee was also meeting regularly. And we put together a number of potential scenarios. Obviously, it was the committee's will that the override budget be supported at the town election and also passed. But what I will say is that we did contemplate both what we called at the time, our level services budget, which was the roughly 5% that we've presented consistently over the past few weeks, as well as some austerity scenarios. And I wanted to say, in response to what Dr. Hackett said earlier, the school committee at this time has showed there's been no will on the part of the currently elected 5 school committee members to move under that budget. The way I've been thinking about it, and I think it's important for us to discuss tonight, is that this budget represents essentially a bridge budget for the next year. We are acutely aware of the fact that that bridge budget can really only last for 1 year before quite significant and quite impactful reductions need to be made across the Winchester Public Schools. We have already laid off 32 full-time equivalents employees across the district in order to meet this 5% level services budget. In large part, 10 of those, as I presented last night, came from our enrollment changes that we've seen over the past year. But another additional 22 FTEs have come from different offices and functions across the district. So while we hope that the budget we are presenting and we hope town meeting supports is a budget that actually leaves things relatively consistent for students, they will definitely see some changes over the course of the year. We've tried our very best to do what we have called protecting the core, which is that the core instructional practice and the experiences that our students have on a day-to-day basis, aside from slightly higher class sizes, really sort of in some cases bumping up against the maximums in our district. The education that we provide in the district will hopefully look broadly the same for this year. But I want to be very clear with everybody that is not possible beyond this year. The additional funds that we had contemplated as part of the State of the Town really do rely on us passing a successful operating override at some point realistically in the next 12 months. So when we look at the post-override budget development that we have done in preparation for Springtown meeting, 2 things have probably been apparent to folks. It's very rare that we get this late in the process. We're 6 days away from when we'll begin discussing the budget on the floor of town meeting. And I'm not sure, I know the Finance Committee had a meeting an hour before ours, so I'm not sure whether they've officially voted a number for the yellow sheet or not. But we also have sort of talked about the 5% target, talked about the level of staffing and programming that we envision that being possible given the budget situation right now. But unless we hear other discussion from members of the committee tonight, what I would say is that this is the will of the school committee, and we hope that town meeting members will be able to support broadly the level of staffing and program that we have proposed for this year, which is definitely a reduction over last year, and we'll see some key places where that is less than we were able to put together previously. But broadly does make sure that our students are still getting high quality educational experiences at the classroom level. So I probably, that was more than I said last night when I had a more strict time frame, but I just wanted to make sure that folks understand that when we say 5%, sometimes I believe it's possible to over-focus on the numbers. Our partners on Select Board, as well as the folks on FinCom, who have been thinking about their own reserve funds, definitely have levers to pull to try and get the overall amount of money in the total town budget that includes schools and the municipal side to a level that's comfortable in terms of using our reserve funds. But we definitely believe that this is the right bridge budget for the 2027 fiscal year, and hope that we will get support from town meeting members for that level of funding and program. Dr. Hackett, happy to hand it back to you, or continue on the next slide if that's your will.
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. So before we're on the next slide. What's been difficult about this is that, the override feels like a long time ago. Those of us who are involved in almost every Friday meetings from, I want to say last June on, have been living this for a very long time. And one of the key components of the override in year one was an allocation of about $1.3 million to stabilize structural changes that have happened since the budget that we were in, the FY26 budget, was passed in the last spring. So since last spring, we have incurred, due to just unanticipated, unexpected changes, including increases in transportation costs, some increases in some programming costs that we have a legal and ethical requirement to carry out, that hit us. And that means that this year we are carrying costs that we did not budget for. The implication of that moving forward is that a very large percentage of that amount of money that was in the year one of the override has to be put into the 5% budget. So in the simplest terms I can put it, we had to make essentially some additional reductions to get in the positions that we realized, the changes that we realized in the current year after the budget was passed. So when we think about the number of reductions that have been taken, it's just important to understand that this is also affected by the fact that we had some significant changes. In fact, since I've been here, we've not had this high of a rollover number. So it's also, on top of everything else, it's an unusually high rollover number for us, and has been a difficult process to get to. I also just want to say, I am very grateful, and I know the committee is very grateful for the cooperation and work of the WEA. As we know, we had 5 contracts to negotiate. We've closed on 4. The biggest one being the teachers. That also includes other professional staff, Unit A. And that process was very thorough. It was collaborative, but there was obviously WEA is not, they fight for the positions. But I also want to say that, we landed in a place that positions us and continues to position us very well in terms of our competitive advantage or competitiveness within the market with openings. So that course correction that we made the last contract term continues to be true based on what I've seen for some of the other contracts around us that are coming in. So what we try to focus on, as Dr. Matthews already said, and you can see this is actually the full list of budget-related reductions. And the complications of this process is that we have to make sure that whatever rifts happen, and we have to go to the licensure of our people. We have non-professional status teachers who are less than 3 years of experience. And in the contract, essentially, it is a, for lack of a better term, last in, first out process for riffing. There's a lot of bumping that can happen as a result of that. And we had to take the time to make sure that we did this right, because there are people on the other end of this list. And as important as it is for us to make sure that we are protecting programs for students, that just inherently means we need to protect staff. And this has been a difficult process for a lot of staff. We're going to lose some very good people, and that's unfortunate. And Dr. Matthews did a really nice job last night of just explaining and showing how we are definitely not alone. And I think any of you who are paying attention to surrounding communities can see the same thing happening. I mean, we have just reached a point in towns, municipalities have reached a point where the funding and the revenue is just not enough to keep up with the costs. And that's been a building problem for many years. So we really want to make sure we got it right. This is where we are. So this is the full listing, with the exception of, we have a placeholder for additional reductions, but this is the full listing of reductions. The FTE count, the 32.5, is right now where we are, and there's no intention from me as a superintendent to bring back any additional reductions in FTEs. We talked last time about the committee's interest in adding back the math specialists, the elementary level, which I appreciate. And, that's not the only thing that we've lost here, right? That is hard to lose. And in really thinking through this whole thing, the uncertainty of FY28, for me, it just does not make sense for us to add back math specialist positions for a couple reasons. One, the uncertainty. Whatever we add into this, we want to make sure is sustainable long term. Two, it would have definitely resulted in some additional reductions to make that happen of FTEs. Three, we need to have, and the work will begin, and we're just rolling out the literacy curriculum next year, which has been a huge effort and very collaborative effort. That's a big lift for our staff. So, but we do need to get to also, and we need to begin those conversations kind of in earnest and more structural way around math. And until we have really kind of a common tier 1 math program, it is difficult to maximize or optimize the use of math specialists. Ideally, we would be implementing a math curriculum, and we would have at least one full-time math specialist in every elementary building. And we just we're not, the funding currently is not, it's not foreseeable. So we consciously made the decision to not come back to you and list out additional reductions to accomplish that goal. People are, understandably, people on this call there's been a lot of anxiety around the reductions that we're making. And our effort and our goal has been to really go through the process as quickly as we can, make sure that we're notifying the people directly, being respectful to them as professionals, and that we weren't trying to meet artificial timelines around notifying or putting together documents that are normally part of the process. So that has taken time, and I just want to express my appreciation to the WA, and to the teachers and everyone who's on this call, and to the committee for understanding that and working with us to get to this point. So the next slide should look familiar for many of you. We have a number of reductions, about 10 of the 32 that are reductions that are enrollment based that we would have taken anyway. So as part of the 32, it's not fair to say, and not that all 32 of those were the result of a failed override. We would have taken, likely we would have taken 10 reductions anyway as part of our enrollment shifts that we've been doing since I've been here. It feels a little different going into next year, because the the trend and the shift is really happening is beginning to enter the middle school. So as part of the overall reduction, we have eliminated one grade 6 team, and it to just match that. And I think that's just what we've been doing. So a good portion of these reductions are a result of the enrollment shifts that we would have taken anyway. The reductions that begin to get into budget-related reductions are, for example, just to hop back to slide 6 quickly, positions that are central office. I mean, the central office and overall structure that are not directly student-facing have taken the brunt of the reductions to get to the $3.2 million at this point. I mean, just the disproportionality between the number of staff we have in the central office in these functions, in terms of the overall staffing in the district, we've done about a third of that 3.2 million has coming from those kinds of positions, which we are definitely going to feel. But that's our commitment, and we will make adjustments as we go. As I've already said, we are committed to this level of staffing. We're not recommending it as it stands right now, any additional FTE reductions, anticipating that we may have to do something differently if town meeting doesn't support the overall position. So we won't know that for a little bit longer. Top considerations. I think we pretty much covered this. I don't know if Dr. Matthews, anyone wants to make any points off of this, but I
was just hoping you could go back to the previous slide. I just want to call attention to the last bullet on this slide, which is that we are still in the process of evaluating a few things, but primarily I would say the budget subcommittee has done quite a bit of work around athletics and the level of program offerings in athletics, as well as fees. But just to reiterate for folks who may be listening for the first time or were not aware of this, it is not anticipated at this time that we will be able to get any funding from town meeting to close the gap in our athletics budget that we had identified. And so the primary work stream that the committee has is to determine what the level of programming will be in terms of our secondary athletics versus using fees as a way to maintain the level of programming and just have a higher level of parent family fees charged. So we've done quite a bit of work on that, but that conversation is not one that I anticipate we will fully resolve before town meeting votes on the budget, but we are not asking for additional funding to cover the shortfall, the gap. Fees historically have not covered the full cost of our athletics programs, so we've tried to maintain family fees at a relatively lower level that only represents a percentage of the total cost of running those programs. And the override budget that we presented actually had a component in it. So if there was a yes vote on the override, we would have been able to continue subsidizing the cost of athletics programs and the breadth of the offerings we currently have. But unfortunately, with the failure of the override, it is now incumbent upon us to find a way to cover those additional funds for athletics, whether through program cuts or through higher level fees for families. So that is something that we are still working through.
Dr. Matthews, do you want to touch on slide 9? It's probably a little higher level.
Yeah, great. So tomorrow night, many of you may know that there's what we're now calling a tri-board meeting, which is the finance committee, the select board, and the school committee. Since in many ways, the total budget picture for the town relies on a synergy between what the municipality is doing as well as what the school department is doing. And so that meeting will be happening tomorrow evening. And I believe is in person at Town Hall. It's posted on winchester.us, our website, so you can find out information about that, and it will certainly be broadcast on WinCam for those who cannot attend in person. It will not be an interactive or virtual meeting. It'll just be broadcast, so you can watch it. In terms of our sort of percent increase versus managing to a structural free cash number, we have, as I said earlier on an earlier slide, we I think are starting to realize that we kind of, as a committee, have a position of what needs to happen in terms of our level of staffing and programming, and what we would like to see as a committee for the next fiscal year at least. And so in many ways, we're sort of shifting from a year-over-year percentage to looking at the structural free cash usage townwide. So that is very much a conversation that we will be having at that tri-board meeting tomorrow night, because I know that our partners on select board in particular have been doing a lot of work to identify either fees or net new changes to different elements of the things that they manage as a way to try and bring down the amount of free cash that's used overall for the town's FY27 budget. So I think more to come on that tomorrow night. I hope that'll be a robust discussion where we can all kind of compare notes on the things we've been up to and what that leaves, the position that leaves us in rather as a town in terms of sort of managing to use of reserves versus preserving reserves for the future. And we really are very grateful to both the select board and the finance committee. Derek Ross, who's the chair of the finance committee, from the floor of town meeting last night, said that this had been a particularly collaborative process. I would like to credit in many ways the State of the Town Committee, which brought together a number of different stakeholder groups, as I said earlier. It definitely made this process of a difficult budget year easier, in the sense that we'd already worked together and we'd already had a number of conversations. But all of the different attempts that have been made to try and look at our use of stabilization funds, as well as places where we can generate additional revenues or trim things is in order to sort of benefit the entire ecosystem of what goes on across the municipal and school sides in Winchester has been a very welcome season of collaboration for us. And we're grateful to continue the process of working with our partners across both of those boards.
Dr. Beth, I don't know. I think at this point, given the time and how long people have waited, I'm comfortable if you are. Certainly, probably starting with committee questions around all of this, but to get to the public forum piece.
Yeah, I mean, so what I want to do. I see Mr. Belair has his hand raised, and we'll take that question first. But what I would say is, once we've gone through the school committee members, what I would like to do is a little bit different than the in-person forum that we've done. We did right before school vacation on the Thursday night. I do want to actually make this a fairly time-limited conversation. So if there are questions that folks have, ideally, I'd really like to sort of keep those under about 2 minutes for tonight. So a little bit less than our typical public comment policy, just because of the time and the number of people. We just, to fill folks in, we have 67 people currently on the call. So just want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to get in. So I'll start with Mr. Belair, and then we will roll on to any, oh, I see Mr. Belair put his hand down. Oh, it's back up. All right, Mr. Belair, go ahead.
Thanks. I was just lowering it, assuming that you were about to call on me. Apologies. Thank you, Dr. Hackett. I really appreciate that presentation. I understand the need for stability, but also just want to reiterate, as I did on April 9th, 16th, and 22nd, that building out that tier 2 math supports is something that needs to be built into the core, and it needs to be a long-term and potentially near-term priority for our district. And I know that that's something that everyone on this call is committed to, that the override upended, but I think there are a lot of great things that we're able to offer programmatically, and yet we don't offer tier 2 math supports, which is a critical resource for many of our learners, particularly those that are struggling, and just sincerely hope that that's something we're able to work into that core in the future. I recognize that it might not be this year, given the time pressure that we're up against and the decisions that have been made and all of the stakeholders that we've engaged. But I think that really needs to be something that we have our eye on in the future, that we're shooting for and thinking strategically about, so that we can ensure all of our students have a really solid foundation. So I just wanted to state that as a comment.
Thanks so much, Mr. Belair. So, Mr. Hopcroft, I see you have your hand raised.
I was just going to quickly echo what Mr. Belair said, and said, that I understand, given the timing, and maybe this is a a key selling point for the next override. But how important it is, and really how important it is that we really take a step back and look at this the way we looked at literacy, and put together a team and really figure out the curricular supports and everything that we need so that those math interventionists are really able to hit the ground. So anyway, just double clicking on Mr. Belair's point, and hopefully everyone listening will help advocate over time with town meeting and with the next override how important this is.
So I just wanted to say we had a town meeting member who reached out to me after last night's session, someone who I haven't scanned the list, but I'm guessing is on this call tonight, who said, there's something that we should all consider around whether things like a district-wide literacy curriculum, obviously that extends to a district-wide math curriculum as well, but also tier 2 supports, as both Mr. Hopcroft and Mr. Belair said, can actually be things that save us money in the long term in terms of being able to deliver appropriately timed support to our students such that their needs do not grow over a period of time. So if they get support at the appropriate time, that is a wise investment in the sense that it actually saves the district money longer term by hopefully returning them back into tier 1. That's the general education classroom. If they're able to have their needs addressed at the appropriate time. And that's something, as from the time I joined the committee a little over 2 years ago, has been a real focus that I've had, is sort of trying to figure out why historically this district has not invested in the things that certainly I've seen in my professional life in many other districts, including smaller towns than ours. So definitely hoping that when we do go back out to the voters for an override, which is not an if, but rather a when, we will be able to actually focus in on those things, which I do genuinely believe are money savers for the district on a longer term basis. So thank you both for that. At this time, I will invite anyone from the community. Oh, I see Ms. Bolognese raised her hand. So I will pause the community portion for just one more comment.
Sorry, just one quick thing. I also agree with Mr. Belair and Mr. Hopcroft and Dr. Matthews and Ms. Minyarji, I know, on investing in our future with the math specialists. And I do hope that this is something that we can come back to in the override in the upcoming year. I would also be interested if we could add back in the Dean of Student Life at the high school, which was something that we have brought in the previous override, and I think has been a valuable addition at the high school. With now we have over 1,400 students and the 2 assistant principals. But I think the Dean of Student Life was very helpful in working with students and just dealing with the many issues that come up with the high school students. So I would just express my support for that as well.
Thanks so much, Ms. Bolognese. So at this time, I would actually invite anyone who is an attendee of the webinar to raise their digital hand. And if they have a question, we will promote them to be able to speak. And then hopefully, if there are any questions, as I said, let's try to keep it to 2 minutes or less. And then the committee can, or Dr. Hackett or any of our other administration team can respond to those questions. I see Roger Wilson, who I know is a Precinct 1 town meeting member, has raised his hand. So if we could promote him, that would be great. Roger, if you go ahead and unmute yourself, and you can turn on your camera.
Can you hear me?
We can. This is also not the same format that the town manager uses. So if you want to turn on your camera, that is also completely understandable.
Whoops, now I've lost everything. Okay. My question is, have you mentioned, or somebody mentioned, transportation fee increases, and I wonder if you have considered what many towns around us have as parking fees, student parking fees, and at least one town has the same parking, the same fee for taking the bus as the parking fee.
I do know that parking fees have actually come up. I see that at least a couple of our select board partners are on here. If any of you wanted to raise your hand, we're happy to pull you in for this discussion, but it definitely has been something that I know has been discussed at the select board table. I see the select board chair, Ms. Brady and Mr. Bayani have raised their hands. So
Mr. Wilson, can I just clarify? You're talking specifically about student parking and charging a fee for student parking?
Yes.
Okay.
Like on site at the high school.
Right. So yes is the short answer. I think everything is under review. And that is nothing is off the table at this point. So we have talked about it. We've really tried to tackle the larger fees. The committee did vote on I believe food service and transportation at your last meeting. So those have been set. And athletics, which is the second largest program that would fall under this, is also under review. We want to be thoughtful about it. I always caution the committee or caution committees to, it's kind of like when you start a business, right? It takes a little bit of time for you to really understand what the impact of the fees are. But yeah, definitely I think we're looking everywhere for any additional potential revenue.
I think there are educational merits to charging for parking. The rest of us pay for parking in many instances.
I see that Ms. Brady has been elevated from our select board chair. So if she wanted to sort of bring us up to speed on the discussion that the select board had, that would be great, because I know it did come up at their table.
Yeah, I don't have much to add here, unfortunately. This did come up before. It is a fee that would need to be set by the select board, that couldn't be set by the school committee, was determined, and something that our town manager is going to look into. And he may have mentioned this last night as well. Kind of, he was looking across fees around town, including some that have not been changed in about 20 years. So it may roll into that approach.
Thanks so much, Ms. Brady, and thank you, Mr. Wilson, as well. I think it's a really great thought, and I know that the boards are working on it. As Ms. Brady said, it's not. It's been determined that it's not in the school committee's purview. So we look forward to again collaborating with our partners on the select board on this particular topic. I think there's some potential revenue that we can find there as well. Are there others? Feel free to raise your digital hands.
I'm not seeing any, Dr. Matthews.
I'm not either. I'll give maybe 10 more seconds, 20 more seconds, but certainly I know we have a number of town meeting members. So if folks have any questions on the presentation that I gave last night or the sort of update, this is really the first time that the school committee has rolled out the full list of reductions in terms of staff that we anticipate not being part of the budget in FY27. So certainly want to just give another maybe 20 seconds for folks to raise their hands. I understand the hour is late, but I know that there have been a lot of comments, particularly on social media, as well as on the Town Meeting Members Association board. And so I definitely want to give an opportunity for anyone to ask questions about, and I'll reiterate what I said last night, the operating budget, which is Article 29. Obviously, we already voted affirmatively on solar last night. Thank you to Mr. Hopcroft and his partners for that great presentation. But we have coming up on Thursday, based on the moderator's timeline, we anticipate we'll also be discussing the Morocco feasibility study, as well as the literacy curriculum, the one-time funding request for arts and letters, the literacy curriculum. So if anyone has any questions on those, happy to take them. I'll give another 20 seconds. Otherwise, I would ask Mr. Marin if you could pull the agenda back up so that we can wrap up our meeting. All right, not seeing any additional questions. Certainly happy to take those as I had my presentation last night. School committee at winchesterps.org. That's school committee at winchesterps.org. That's the way to reach all 5 of us, and we can definitely answer any questions that you may have. In terms of our next meetings, agenda item number 5 on this agenda, We have our tri-board meeting with the select board, the finance committee, and the school committee tomorrow at town hall. And then obviously Springtown meeting continues this Thursday, April 30th.
I'm sorry, Dr. Matthews. Anthea Brady has her
Yeah, I
hand
see
raised.
Anthea just raised her hand. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Ms. Brady.
I just want to clarify, if people are interested in that tri-board meeting, it will be held on Zoom. It will not be on town hall, so you can
I apologize.
attend from the comfort of your home.
I apologize. I knew that, but it's just, there's so many meetings this week. It's hard to keep up. So thank you very much for saving me from sending a bunch of unsuspecting people to town hall tomorrow night. So winchester.us is where the link is available. I see the Winchester Public Schools have raised their hand.
All of us. I just also wanted to mention, obviously, we have these meetings, and the commitment is to publish and put out all the budget information by this Friday. And I believe you mentioned that last night, Dr. Matthews, including a line item detailed budget that will include the FTE counts by cost center, which has been the piece that's been really under review and under work through the just the reduction process. So that will be put out on Friday. And so that will be available, and we'll make it available to everybody, both directly and direct communications with town meeting members and town officials, but also it'll be on our website as all of our budget information is.
Yeah, and I was going to say as well. I was going to say that after the Springtown meeting dates, but I don't know if Mr. Marin, it's possible for you to just pull up the slide that I presented last night at the very end of my presentation. But what I will say is that we anticipate both that as well as the some kind of a budget book similar to what we did last year. I know there were a lot of folks who really loved that piece that we sent out. Those will be out on Friday. The other things that I wanted to highlight are I would anticipate. So tomorrow I am going to send out a communication sort of summarizing this meeting to all town meeting members, sending out the presentation that I gave last night because I had a number of requests. Folks felt like, given the amount of information that was on that presentation deck, that it would be helpful to see it. So I'm intending to send that out tomorrow, along with a preview of the presentation that Mr. Berlaire and I will present around the Morocco feasibility study, since there have been a number of questions about that. So definitely for those who are town meeting members, do look out for that email sometime tomorrow from me to all town meeting members. But as you see here, we had our public forum tonight, the virtual budget presentation, the thing that I just referenced will be there, as well as some kind of a budget memorandum, whether it's a one-pager or a two-pager, just to sort of explain where we've landed and summarize these conversations. And obviously, if you have any questions, as I said before, feel free to email schoolcommittee@winchesterps.org. We are very grateful, as the third bullet on this slide says, for everyone's continued support of Winchester's learners and educators. It's been a really hard year. I know that we've had a number of educators who've joined various meetings along the way. And I definitely want to make sure that everybody knows what a great staff of educators we have and how fortunate we are to have those folks in Winchester. Obviously, this whole process has been very hard for the committee and the administration as well, and we're trying our very best to be as respectful as possible through this whole process. So with that, we've sort of walked through all of the different things. I see Mr. Belair has a question.
Sorry, I didn't know if we were about to adjourn, but wanted to flag that the consent agenda is,
So we decided, actually, Mr. Belair, that the consent agenda was going to be postponed until next week, just because of the fact that it turned out it wasn't. We had one member of the committee who reached out and noted that we actually have to publish the items that are in the consent agenda, and that did not end up in the published agenda on the town website. So we will have to bring that back the next time we have a noticed meeting, which will be next week.
Just also to note, it's not really timely either. So
urgent.
It's not urgent.
Yeah. So yeah, but thank you for that. With that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. All right. So Ms. Minyarji made the motion. I heard both Ms. Bolanese and Mr. Hopcroft seconded. So I will let our wonderful staff who take the minutes figure that one out. And now, because we are on Zoom, we need to take a roll call vote to adjourn. Mr. Belair.
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft.
Aye.
Ms. Bolanese.
Aye.
Ms. Minyarji.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. And so we are adjourned at 8:46 p.m. Thank you so much to the community and to WinCam for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Aye.
you.